Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man, at your services. But not only Kilt-Man, I've got a few hairy friends here, and my mummy is looking over me to make sure that I'm okay. How are you all? Hope you're doing very, very well. Yes, I showed you the unboxing and the initial reaction to some of the new Tots Trick or Treat Studios range of Hammer and Universal masks, and I was very suitably impressed by and large. And today, right now, for your edification, I'm going to now examine properly, close up, the Wolfman Mask. Yeah, the one I was most longing for and highly anticipating. My favourite character of all the Universal movies and my favourite monster out of all the monsters ever created. And sculpted by Jasper Anderson, who did that wonderful mask up there from the Tots range. That is the Hammer version of the mummy. Christopher Lee is beneath that rotting, cadaverish, ancient Egyptian visage. And now Jasper has turned his attention to Lon Chaney Jr.'s incarnation of the Wolfman from 1941, directed by George Wagner and written by Kurt Siodmak, the film that actually put on the whole thing about full moons and silver. Incidentally, we have here, just in case our friend gets a bit unruly, we have the silver wolf-headed cane. A bit of a bash on the noggin, as if I'd do that. You could never step out of line as far as I'm concerned. So, folks, if you've got one of these or anything similar, raise it now and let's get in the mood. A full moon frenzy of maskage appreciation is about to ensue. Yeah, Lon Chaney Jr., 1941. I've discussed the Wolfman many, many times, so we're not really going to go into the film at all, but we're going to discuss the mask that Jasper has come up with. And here he is now. There's a nice little close-up. Now, with the lighting at the moment, you can appreciate that the luxurious brown fur is looking a little bit sort of red tinted, a bit like my own hair for that matter. Now, that's not a bad thing, because in reality, the fur, the yak hair, which Jack P. Pierce, Makeup Supremo, the guy that created all the iconic monsters for Universal Studios, painstakingly adhered yak hair to Lon Chaney's face, strand by strand by strand. Wow, what an arduous process that was. And it wasn't just uniformly brown. It was lots of different shades. Only a handful of coloured stills actually have surfaced from the production of the movie. And then you've got the lobby cards and the artist's impressions, the illustrations which have been laboriously painted over, which look spectacular. But there are different sheens to the fur. There's lighter bits, there's darker bits, there's sort of blondish bits, caramel coloured bits. There's all sorts in there. So the people who received this mask and have rehauled it and darkened the leathery face and darkened the hair, I don't know why you've done that, because that's not how it looks. I mean, obviously, personal preferences come into it, of course, and once you've paid your money and you've got your mask, you can do with it as you will. But, each to their own. I initially thought, when I got this mask, okay, right, look, we've got the whole sort of, you can see the hairline. I'll take it off its little stand here. What's its stand, Kilt-Man? Oh, it's a bottle of Famous Grouse. So let's get this. Let's show you this now. You have, this gorgeously, very angular and striated, very harshly depicted hairline or fairline around the face. And that gives it a sort of Planet of the Apes, John Chambers sort of look to the overall aesthetic. I can see that. It's a little bit too sharp, I think, here, I would say. But, you can play with that, you can do stuff, because in actuality, there was, even though he had the leathery sort of, face makeup applied, collodion was stuck on, and he had the fake dog nose appliance was put on, and the underbite with the fangs. But the fur did creep across the face a little bit more than it does here. So you can play about with that. But overall, my initial sort of misgivings, and from what I'd seen of previous interpretations of this, the fur, there was one from novelty forums which had a huge swathe of fringe which just flopped down perfectly straight and covered the entire face. To get that out of his eyes, you had to like sweep it back, spray it down, nail it down, anchor it, and that would produce a very sleek, sort of almost like Bela Lugosi slick back, Count Dracula hairdo. And that's not right, folks. You can see an action figure, a vintage action figure of the Wolfman there. And that pretty much does show how the hair should be. And you can see it is curled. It's curly, it's bushy, it's thick, it's wavy. That's how it should be. Now, in reality, Jack P. Pierce, all the yak hair, he would take styling irons, hair styling, straighteners or curlers, and he would singe the ends of the hair, of all the strands, to give it a sort of wild, unkempt, sort of burnished feel to it. Wild. And obviously Lon Chaney often said, that because the two of them didn't get on that well. But then again, how would you fare when you have to spend 4 to 6 hours before filming getting the makeup applied, then another 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, sometimes it took longer to take the makeup off at the end of the day. And then for the arduous transformation process, most notably in the second werewolf movie, Wolfman movie, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which is fucking awesome. For the first time you actually saw a facial transformation, he's in the hospital bed in Cardiff General Hospital, and having been revived from his tomb by some stupid, nefarious yet foolhardy grave robbers. And you see the full facial transformation then, and he was actually pinned down. As you always said, they drove little tiny nails through the edges of his fingers to make sure that he stayed painstakingly still. He always claimed, this is Lon Chaney, 22 hours that took to film that transformation. 22 hours. That's a long time. And he always said, don't ask about the toilet facilities. But, so the hair was singed and the hair was curled back to give it this bestial sort of look. Now, I've seen a few of these on videos before I got mine, and I was a little bit, that hair does not look right. And people were slicking it back and flattening it down and straightening it. And I thought, it shouldn't be like that. Now, I have not done much to this. I have not done much at all. What I have done, because the fur, in reality, let's lift that up there. The hairline for Lon Chaney on the original, makeup was literally right the way, almost solid above here. Throughout later movies, in the slew of Wolfman movies, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, and all this sort of stuff, that would evolve over time. And in actual fact, it became a mask. It became basically one appliance to put on, because obviously, time was of the essence, and Jack P. Pierce had to start making up not only Lon Chaney, but Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, hang on a minute, Glenn Strange, a few of them. There was a host of people he had to do. So all of a sudden, he didn't have enough time to concentrate on one monster. So anything to help speed up the process. In the first movie, all of this was applied separately. That the hair was always applied. The dog nose, this was an appliance in itself, which just fitted over all around this area and up between the eyes, and just was fixed down with this lovely dog nose. And yeah, like a dog nose should be wet, shouldn't it? And that does indeed look wet. It's glistening. It is wet. Don't tell me that roof's leaking again. But yeah, so as it evolved again, you would see in certain movies, and certainly in certain shots, because they change in some of the movies as well. Obviously, going back during that sort of time, continuity, it wasn't the best sometimes. Like, so they have to like just look, I've made him up, off you go. Ah, they're gonna shout action, and he'd be out prowling around. Sometimes you would see the fur would actually seem to be growing out of the gap between his eyes, and a wolfman, the eyebrows always meet in the middle. But the fur would grow out from that and become the hairline, which would then be sort of curled back and back. I mean, you can see there the solid mass that the hairline was, and the way that it does come out pronounced. So what I've done for this particular mask, all I've done for this so far, is to pull, because that was literally straight back and you had that sort of, the widow's peak was there. All I've done is form a bit of a quiff, pull it down a bit, and just pull out some bits and sort of give it a bit more life and a bit more vitality, and just give it more body, And I think you get more of an impression there of it coming down. I mean, you can play about with this to your heart's content, obviously, of course you can. And the hair, the coverage is fantastic. Look at all this. It is great. It is wonderfully well done. The sculpt is spot on. The ears were never pronounced on the original Chaney makeup. You saw them, but they weren't particularly pointed. So you have just got ears, just there. There's one. There's one over here. That's it. But it does give a little impression of, the sort of lupine, profile. And as I say, the fur is beautifully, adhered. It's not stitched in. It is not, punched through, but it is affixed very, very well. And I can find no baldy spots. There's no alopecia, which is clearly the layers and strips of fur which have been adhered. I'm not seeing any little baldy spots whatsoever, and I've had no hair drop or loss whatsoever. And the same goes for myself. But, so, there you go. The fur is great. I would play about with sort of these sharp, contrasts here. The leathery flesh, the fur begins. It should be more graduated. I mean, the makeup for Lon Chaney was a sort of human-like face with the dog snout and the underbite. Not particularly overly aggressive fangs, and that is a very good, perfectly accurate depiction of them. Just a little underbite. I can't even do it because my face is vastly different, and I've got quite a bit of an overbite. But you can hear the original soundtrack to the Wolfman playing there. Frank Skinner and Hans J. Salter, and the gypsy violins. But yeah, we have some great detail on the leathery skin. Lots and lots of, it glistens as well. Again, in this light, you might not be picking up too well on that, but it does glisten. I'll move him out the way for a second and try and get a little bit closer. But lots of contours, lots of shading and shadow, lots of detail. Some people will like to go a bit more on that and try and pronounce it a bit more. And as I say, I've seen the hair darkened and the face darkened. Well, that's up to you. I don't think you're right with that, I'm afraid. But, hey, ain't rocking no boats here. Now, and people have cut the eyes out. Why would you do that? The eyes are brilliant. Now, what I will say, creative license and all that, you can see that there are burst blood vessels. The eyes are bloodshot. Now, filmic accuracy, not sure about that. Having just watched The Wolfman again for the, just help me out here, 49,000th time, you can't see bloodshot eyes. However, and I don't know if you're picking it up on this too well, that eye, the left eye, is kind of sort of on this one a little bit squinted, and it's a little bit smaller than the other one. You're probably not getting that, but in 3 dimensions, trust me, it is. And that, because when that famous head transformation from Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, which takes place in the hospital bed, when he goes through the final process and then he is Wolfian, the underbites go like that, the eyes narrow, and this one is really savage, and he's looking around like that because suddenly the beast has taken over, and that does remind me of that. So, but again, the bloodshot eyes, I'm not certain about that. I don't recall that Jack P. Pierce put sort of any kind of coloured contacts on Chaney's eyes. I don't recall that. I could be wrong. Normally I've got all these facts and figures and all that, but I don't think that he did. Certainly not in the first movie, to be honest. But it's a wonderful touch regardless. It does give him a bit more of a sort of frenzied, sickened, aspect. I said in the previous video, he's almost like a wino, a big pisshead he's drunk too much of stuff like this, and his eyes have just, he's gone, mate, he's gone. But it works. It gives him a life of his own, certainly. I love the darkened dog snout. I think that's a brilliant touch. I mean, Jack Pierce had done a Wolfman makeup previously in 1935 for The Werewolf of London. Not an American Werewolf of London, but The Werewolf of London, with Henry Hull playing the werewolf. Now, initially, he had given almost the same makeup that he would later do for Lon Chaney, except it was hairier. I've got stills from that, the original makeup. You've got the underbite, you've got the darkened nose, you've got all of this sort of bushy hairdo, but you've got a lot more fur on the face as well. And Henry Hull, the actor portraying the ill-fated scientist botanist who becomes the werewolf, didn't like that. He said, "No, I want my face to be seen." Remarkably, Henry Hull was not a very good actor. He was starchly, wooden and really theatrical and very, very, emphatic and boring, until he becomes the werewolf. And then he's really, really good. So he said, "I want my face to be seen." So in that version, you got pretty much a stripped down version of the Lon Chaney look. There's a lot more humanistic angle to him. You can see the ears more. There's definitely a widow's peak going on, and the hair is slicked back. And you've got the underbite. But it looks really freakishly scary, and I think that's a great look. So obviously, Pierce wanted to go back to the original look for the Wolfman when that came out, and as I say, Chaney didn't enjoy the process, put up with it. There's many shots of the two of them, Chaney in the makeup chair and little Jack Pierce in his white scientist gown, like with his chin jutting, applying, and there's a wry grin on his face, and you can see in some shots Chaney is going like that with his fist, and it's posed, but you know what Chaney was like. Chaney and Evelyn Ankers, who plays Gwen Conliffe, the love of his life in The Wolfman, they did not get on, and when he goes for it during the climactic scenes, when he pounces on it in those gorgeously mist enshrouded woods and moorlands, and he flings around, he's really going for it. They did not get on. So you can see it for real, and it adds a greater ferocity to his character. I always say, how is it that the Wolfman changes clothes? In the first movie, his first transformation, he takes off his shirt to his vest, takes off his shoes, but when he actually goes out on the moors, he's got a whole new shirt on, different pair of pants on. What does a werewolf actually think? Well, right, underbite, yeah, pointy ears, fair, big snout. Right, now I need my 30s work shirt, my 30s vintage work shirt, which is what became the Wolfman's uniform throughout the rest of the movies in that series. And most annoyingly of all, and no one ever seems to pick up on this, in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, he's in the hospital bed in Cardiff. He awakens there with amnesia. Dory, he's already killed a couple of people, and he wakes up and he knows I should be dead. I'm a werewolf. And because they don't believe him, and they leave him there overnight, conveniently with the full moon shining through the window into his ward, and he then transforms again. He's in a hospital gown. How is it when he goes out the window and on the prowl and kills a policeman on the beat, he's back in his normal, very dark green work shirt from the 1930s? That's the standard look of the Wolfman. So he gets out of bed, goes to wherever his clothes have been kept in the wardrobe or the closet or whatever, and gets dressed again to go out on the town. What's it all about? But we know it and we love it. So, Jasper Anderson. There's good detail on the teeth, the fangs, the underbite is great, the striations on the lips, and you can see, okay, the dog nose, but there is a bit of a snoutage. You've got this curved area, around the nose, like a dog's snout, a wolf's snout. Obviously, Rick Baker would bring out like that, and of course, Rob Bottin for the howling, trained by Rick Baker, who used the effects he just learnt from Rick Baker, and the howling came out just before American Werewolf. And as I've said many times, my favourite werewolf of all time, it isn't this guy, it's actually the Eddie Quist werewolf from The Howling, which is just, I think, the most terrifying thing I've ever encountered. And, not that I've encountered it, but here we go. So you have this lovely sort of final touch veneer, giving it a life, giving this leathery skin, this leathery flesh, a life of its own. I always say about Ghoulish Productions and how they give this sort of glossy sheen as a finishing touch to their masks, which give it this vitality. Well, this mask has that very definitely, and I'm loving it. In this light, this flesh looks a lot lighter, same as the hair, than it does in reality. It's beautifully beautifully horrible, if that's the right terminology, of this coffee caramel off brown flesh colour, which is wonderful. So as I say, you've got to play about with the hair, you've got to give it a bit of a quiff, because you need that to come down. You might like the whole thing to be slicked back, you might do, and that's fair dues, but it's not how it should look. The fur should be down, it should be a solid mass from here, pretty much here upwards, and it does come out in a bunch like that and go back. I don't recommend taking hair straighteners or curlers and singeing the ends of this. I don't recommend doing that. Incidentally, as the films went on, there was less and less bushiness to the hairdo. It became a lot tighter and sort of tighter to his head, a lot shorter. And Pierce always said it's because they were running out of yak hair in Hollywood, in the Universal makeup department, because he was using it all, But you can play about with this a lot. It's nicely flattened down the back. You don't need to do anything there, but you just need to just tweak the fur a bit. You can pick out bits, you can spray it, you can do it. Just don't burn it, obviously. But, you can play about with this. Fold it round, put hairspray on it, put gel on it, just to give it a bit more bounce and body. Because that's how it should look. It should have more, oomph to it. It's also a small mask. In fact, all the masks that I've received from Tots lately, including that, and the Curse of the Werewolf and the Curse of Frankenstein masks, they're all smaller than the usual masks. Everyone always complains, these masks, they're beautiful, they're fantastic, but they're just too big to wear. I could put it on, I could spin round and the mask wouldn't even move. I could spin round inside it. But they seem to have listened, because these masks are smaller. Now, I don't mind that at all. You guys all think I've got this great big pumpkin face. Well, I have got a great big pumpkin face with a mountain of this silliness, adorning it. But my actual head is like a pinhead. I've got a tiny little, brain box, because I've only got a tiny little brain. Cheers. And this is my crusade to kill off all those extraneous brain cells, because I don't need them. But, so I'm going to put this on now. And to be honest, I've only worn this once, and I loved it. I did the prowl around, It's sort of hunched over, semi-crouch sort of, stalking mode. And because Lon Chaney was a brute of a man, big fella, very stocky, not the best looking of guys in the world, and but he made this character his own, and he really invested pathos and a tragic sense of doom about him. You loved Larry Talbot, and you loved him as this especially, but he does look kind of funny as he's creeping around on the big dog leg sort of padded boots that fairy boots. Oh, before we go any further, some people like to know if there's any markings on the inside. Well, it's the first time I've looked actually. There isn't. There's no marks, there's no pumpkin. I can't see anyone's initials or anything. So, there we go. Oh, before I do that, here is the tag. Let's have a look. So again, that's one of the many posters for the Wolfman. And you can see, I don't know if you can see that, you can see the effect of the fur, the singed quality to it. Although you can't see that too well on this, but that poster, that image is actually very accurate. So there you go, all the usual gubbins, how to look after your latex splendour. And if you don't know by now, well, you never will. Right, okay. Mummy, we're going in. Yeah, you've got to faff around with this a fair bit, and I would recommend trying to get some of this fur to try and disguise just how sharp these angles are. I mean, those in the know could probably remove some fur and stick it further in and just make it a bit furrier around the cheeks. And even though he's a wolf, and he goes for the jugular, he also goes for the stranglehold as well. Yeah, as I say, folks, that's quite a small mask. It's a good fit, it's a cosy fit. I mean, it works for me. One problem I did note is that the tag was on that side there, right? This is a fair-related problem as well. Not a major problem, but, I'm gonna mention it anyway. The tag was there. Once I removed it, the fur would not sit down. So I've really got to play with that to keep that bit down. Otherwise, it just sticks out like a rear view mirror on the car. But there you go, folks. This is Chaney Entertainment and Trick or Treat Studios put this together. And I think it's wonderful. Despite some misgivings and a bit of lowered expectations when I'd seen other videos of it and other imagery of people receiving theirs, I thought, ooh, temper your expectations. But no, I'm absolutely loving it. I do apologise that the lighting isn't the best at the moment, and maybe I should have waited to do this properly, but I wanted to do this video all day long. But real life, despite the Liverpool area going into heavy lockdown, yes, the most strictest in the UK, brilliant, right where I live. Cheers for that. Cheers, Prime Minister. So, but anyway, I thought, I'll do it now. I hope you're getting this. I hope you can see it pretty well. You could obviously, play about with this, as I say, to your heart's content. You can isolate and individualize strands. You could put some gel on it just to give it a bit more sort of, detail in it. But basically, that's wonderful. Folks, I have been and always shall be Kilt-Man and his biggest fan. So please, in the meantime, and that hirsute lycanthropic in between time, take it easy, be happy, be healthy, keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all later. It's a cold and a wet out here.